What's up, y'all? Thought I'd change the layout for these videos so that it's easier to see. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, this is all an experiment for me. So, as I said before, I only trade a handful of stocks each day, some of which I have long-term holdings in, and pretty much my long-term holding is going to be my core position, and then I just pretty much trade around it and being mindful of wash sales. This time I'm going to go back, or I'm going to talk about a couple of those stocks. They're going to be Archer Aviation, that's ticker symbol ACHR, and SOFI Technologies, and that ticker symbol is SOFI. I mainly trade the NASDAQ, but today I want to discuss those two. So, first up is going to be Archer. For those that aren't familiar with Archer, they're an eVTOL manufacturer. I can pull up their profile here for y'all real quick. So this company, they make electrical vertical takeoff and landing aircrafts. I'll throw a picture of what their aircrafts look like up on the screen for y'all to check out. So this company has partnerships with Anduril, which is a defense company, and Stellantis to help with their manufacturing, and just recently Boeing. So I went ahead and went to their investor relations page and pulled up some headlines for y'all to check out. I'll put them on the screen for y'all to view. Feel free to pause and read if you want. So back on July 22nd, they introduced Halo, which I'll put a picture of that aircraft on the screen for y'all to look at. This Halo aircraft, they partner up with Anduril to develop it for both defense and commercial applications. So this aircraft is a hybrid electric aircraft and has dual tilt rotors. So because it has those tilt rotors, this aircraft and also their midnight aircraft is capable of vertical takeoff and landing. It also has the capability to take off like a normal aircraft. Then on August 3rd, Archer's midnight aircraft finally completed its city-city flight, which it's been testing for quite some time now. Looks very promising. Then on August 10th, Archer acquired Boeing's Whisk Aero, Institute, and SkyGrid subsidiaries from Boeing, and by doing that, gave Boeing about a 20% ownership in the company. Then on August 10th, they released their second quarter 2026 results. Now let's take a peek at those. So let's start off with their income statement here. So as you can see here, Q1 they had 1.6 million in total revenue, and for Q2, $5 million in revenue. That's about a $3.4 million difference. And as you can see, their operating expenses in Q1 was 200, and we'll call that 255 million to, and we'll call that to 280 million. And these are going to be your year over year percentages here. Their operating income was negative 279 million for the quarter. Their net income 263 million. So this business is losing money. Now let's go to their balance sheet. So as you can see, their total assets for Q2 was 2.21 billion. That's a little bit down from Q1. Q1 was 2.32 billion, so a little decrease there. And if you look at the cash and cash equivalents, that also went down. So Q1 was 1.78 billion, Q2 was 1.56 billion. So according to the company, this was primarily due to using the 156 million cash for operating activities, 37.1 million used in purchase of property and equipment, 25 million used in acquisition of the fixed base operator business at the Hawthorne Airport. So next up is total liabilities. For Q2 is 298.7 million. That is an increase from Q1. Next up is total non-current liabilities at 137.4 million. So that's actually a little bit down from last quarter. Total long-term debt at 78 million, a little bit lower from last quarter. And total debt at 80.1 million. So for now, they are experience quite a bit of cash burn right now, but that's due to them, investing into research and development and trying to expand their business. They just acquired those 3 subsidiaries from Boeing. So for the time being, I think the cash burn is tolerable at this point, but we need to start seeing increase in revenues and get the Midnight up and running for commercial use. They do have, I believe it's $6 billion backlog for orders. Yes, it's $6 billion backlog orders for their Midnight aircraft, which Stellantis is helping with on the manufacturing side. Now, let's talk about some risks here with this company. So, some of the risks are going to be regulations around this air taxi thing, um, them not hitting their manufacturing timelines with their Midnight aircraft. The cash burn is definitely something to be mindful of. And because of that, this kind of makes it a riskier investment, a more speculative play. And because of the cash burn, another concern would be, you know, potential future dilution of the stock in order for them to raise money since they're not making money. So, with all that being said, I'm still pretty bullish on the company. I think air taxis will become a thing. I'm already seeing some airports start to build to accommodate eVTOLs. I started investing in this stock at about around $5 and some change, and still continue to add to my long-term position in this company. Now that we got that out the way, let's quickly go over their chart. So here is the daily chart. Let's zoom out to the weekly. So recently seeing quite a bit of volume now, and this hit a high of 1462. What was that? That was back in October of last year, and just has been on the decline ever since. But but it did manage to break this descending resistance line here. Let me pull up the daily. So tested it once here, tested it once here, and then just recently finally just broke out and is now at the 200 EMA. So it broke above and just been kind of consolidating around the 200 there. Tested this resistance line here, 711. Have a little gap here. Now going forward, I'd really like for it to hold that 200 EMA and break through this resistance and have this resistance turn into the floor and start acting as support for a potential move up to maybe 920 here. One thing concerning about this recent move is if you look at the volume here, you can see that volume is been decreasing. So usually that's not a good sign. But if price can hold above the 200 and continue higher, I'm watching this blue line. That's going to be the 50 EMA. And if we can get the 50 EMA to cross over the 200 on this daily chart, then we could have a golden cross on our hands. Okay, next up is going to be SOFI Technologies. Let me zoom out to the weekly. Here, got this descending resistance line. But before we get started on the chart, let's go over what the company is. If y'all aren't familiar, I'll bring that up for y'all here. So they're pretty much a one-stop shop digital financial services company. You know, they do lending, student loan, refinance, personal loans, home loans, and they also have a whole bunch of other financial services. This company is strictly online and has no brick and mortar locations, which some people think is a bullish thing, me included. That way they don't have to pay for the building and the land and the taxes. So that just, lowers their expense. So this company back in February of 2022 obtained its national bank charter with their completion or their acquisition of Golden Pacific Bancorp. This moves SoFi from a traditional fintech relying on partner banks to a nationally chartered FDIC insured bank. So by doing this, it subjects the company to rigorous federal banking regulations, compliance audits, and capital requirement constraints. Now let's go over some of their financials, starting with the income statement. So as you can see from this, they made 1.14 billion interest income for Q2. That's about 44% year over year. Their total interest expense was 352 million, and their net income was 156.6 million, which is a 61% year over year growth on net income. So in Q2, according to their investor relations page, SoFi added 1.1 million new members, making it the third consecutive quarter where it added over a million members. Its cross-sell rate also improved in the quarter, with the number of products raising twice as much as the new members. Then, over half of the new products were opened by existing members, which is really encouraging. Its loan originations also rose to a record high of 14.8 billion. The company also raises full-year revenue guidance, but held back on increasing the EBITDA guidance. So now let's look at their balance sheet. Total assets, 60.95 billion. That's going to be about 48% year over year. We got cash and due from banks at 3.1 billion. Net loans, 47.93 billion. And here's total liabilities at 49.87 billion. Total deposits at 45.5 billion. That's 54% year over year. And total debt at 3.3 billion. And total equity 11 billion. And total liabilities and shareholders equity at 60.95 billion. So here is SoFi's cash flow statement. Cash from operating activities is negative 3.89 billion. Now, since they're growing, this being negative is not unusual. Now they're trying to expand its loan book and investment portfolio so that they can try to grab market share. So that's the reason for that. And also their loan origination and securities purchases. And another reason for this being negative is under GAAP, they have to classify funding and originating loans as operating cash outflows. So that's another reason. So now we've gone over the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. Let's talk about some risks in investing in this stock. Now, none of this is financial advice, by the way, but the risks. So, an unexpected economic recession or a spike in unemployment definitely could negatively affect the company. That would or could cause default rates to go up, credit losses, and directly threatening their net income. Heavy reliance on their loan side of the business. Some people say that is also a risk, but Noto and his team are trying to alleviate that by offering, a plethora of different financial services to help with that. Another risk would also be shifts in sentiment around the company. So, with all that being said, I think there's still a very bright future for SoFi. They definitely a disruptor in that sector, which can bring along volatility with it. After tracking this company for I don't even know how many quarters now, every single earnings they've delivered, as far as my investment in this company, I'm not really too worried about it. We'll look at the chart, and yes, it did have a really steep drop from its highs of, I believe it was 32. I got in at about $7 a share, and just been dollar cost averaging into this stock. Average right now, I believe, is around $15. So, looking forward, even if we were to go into a recession, this company wouldn't be the only one taking a hit. And I think that eventually, if that were to happen, they'd be able to definitely bounce back. Okay, now let's take a look at the chart here. Yep, 32.73 was the high. I have this descending resistance line here, looking at the weekly chart, and that was back in, hit the high in November 14th of last year, and hasn't even gotten close to retesting that level. But let's pull up the daily chart here. As you can see, it has pretty much just been going sideways here. Uh, has put in a really good bottom here. Uh, this is acting as really good support. I would be surprised if it broke under that. It'd probably have to be some major macro event to push it down that far. But as you can see on this descending line here, price has now broken above, actually broke and retested, and now price is right under the 200. So the green line is the 200 EMA, and I got a resistance here at 1841. So in coming days, this is something that uh, I want to see price get above that 200 and hold above. And this is another one very similar to Archer, where we have this blue line here, which is the 50 EMA. If we can get price to hold above the 200, and it needs to hold above for multiple days, maybe even a couple weeks, and try to get this 50 EMA to cross over for a possible golden cross. So if it can do that, and that 50 crosses the 200, I think this thing could go much higher than 20, and we could see that here in the short term, maybe even to this 2207 resistance line. I'm also going to be watching the MACD here. I want to see, the yellow line is going to be the MACD, and the blue line is going to be the signal, and the red and green bars is the histogram. So I want to see this yellow line start peeling apart from that signal, and the histogram also put in some bigger green bars here. That'll indicate to me that momentum is picking up. So I'll be watching this stock next week to see what happens. So for next week, I'm going to be watching this line here, the 2028 line here. Prices rejected here. Didn't quite make it there, but when I say lines, it's pretty much an area. As you can see, it rejected almost to there. But I'm watching that. If it can break and hold above here, that'll give us a good chance to maybe make a couple bucks up to 22 this coming up week. If it does get rejected from the 200, then I'll probably look to add somewhere under 17 maybe. So that's what I'm going to be watching. Well, guys, I hope y'all found this helpful. Making these videos definitely has me out of my comfort zone, but I figure that if it can help people and bring them some value, then why not? I have fun doing it anyway. I'm sure as more time passes, I'll get better at it. Anyway, I want to try to keep these videos short, to the point, and as simple as possible. So, thanks for watching, and stay positive, be objective, exercise patience, and stay humble. All right, y'all have a great week.